the premise, there's the scenario, the story. We'll ask a couple of questions. Basically, we're talking about tenants' rights on the program in a little bit from now. So the listener's currently renting a premises, obviously, from their landlord. Now, if that sounds like you, then you want to be clicking into this conversation, which will be starting in about 5 minutes, give or take. But we're getting the video going, so you can jump in onto the video, claim your seat, watch the video, get the answers, and remember, you can interact on WhatsApp as well. 060-904-1056. Back with attorney Altaaf Raoof after this.
The Breakfast Rush, brought to you courtesy of the Willow Tin Group, at the forefront of innovation, and one of the leading competitors in the South African FMCG market.
There's nothing quite like the taste of a traditional family meal, and at the heart of every great dish is a key ingredient that brings it all together. That ingredient is Sunfoil pure sunflower cooking oil, made from only the finest sunflower seeds. It's a perfect way to enhance the taste of your family's favorite foods. Sunfoil cooking oil is more than just oil. It's the key to bring your family together over a delicious meal and making every bite taste better. Remember, the key ingredient to a great family meal is Sunfoil. Tradition just tastes better.
You're listening to the Breakfast Rush.
It's official. Checkers Foods Kawi Park is our first food store with a halal butchery, bakery and deli certified by NIHT, the National Independent Halal Trust. This will ensure high standards and ethical practices across our butchery, bakery and deli from farm to table. So visit Checkers Foods Kawi Park for an exceptional shopping experience that keeps getting better and better.
Join Salim and Nazmeera Mehta on a soul-enriching Islamic journey through India, visiting Delhi, Kalyal, Kashmir, Agra, Jaipur, Ajmer and Mumbai. Departing 31st August, returning 14th September. 12 nights from 46,990 rand per person. Includes flights from Johannesburg, 12 nights accommodation, meals, tours, transfers as per itinerary, Kawali programs and lots more. Contact Shaw Mehta's Travel on 031-207-6987.
The Breakfast Rush, brought to you courtesy of the Willow Tin Group, at the forefront of innovation, and one of the leading competitors in the South African FMCG market.
The Breakfast Rush. From South Africa to the world.
I listen on my way to work.
I like the variety. It's awesome.
It's cool.
It's your number one.
Feel good.
The Breakfast Rush.
Makes me feel good. Brings back the memories.
The Breakfast Rush.
Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. रब मुस्तफा तू मुझे हज पे बुला आके मैं देख लूं आँख से काबा तेरा या रब मुस्तफा तू मुझे हज पे बुला आके मैं देख लूं आँख से काबा तेरा हज का शरफ हो फिर अता या रब्बे मुस्तफा हज का शरफ हो फिर अता या रब्बे मुस्तफा मीठा मदीना फिर दिखा मीठा मदीना फिर दिखा या रब्बे मुस्तफा मुस्तफा या मुझे आगे मैं देखूं या अल्लाह या अल्लाह अल्लाह या अल्लाह अल्लाह या अल्लाह या अल्लाह रुखसुए काबा हाथ में ज़मज़म का जाम हो रुखसुए काबा हाथ में ज़मज़म का जाम हो पी कर करूं मैं फिर दुआ पी कर करूं मैं फिर दुआ या रब्बे मुस्तफा या रब्बे मुस्तफा मुझे हज पे बुला रोती रहे जो हर घड़ी इश्क़े रसूल में रोती रहे जो हर घड़ी इश्क़े रसूल में
Absolutely beautiful recording, this one here.
हर घड़ी
Hey, Ya Rabbi Mustafa. It's your breakfast rush. It's coming to 7:40 now. And if you're watching the video, thank you so much for being there. I hope you enjoyed that recording as well. If you haven't jumped onto the video just yet, then do so. Live on Facebook, live on YouTube, and of course, live inside your radio as well. It's your breakfast rush with the team. So, today's topic with our resident attorney, Brother Altaaf Raoof, based on a listener scenario. So, the listener is currently renting a premises from their landlord, and the landlord has decided to sell the premises. Now, the landlord requires the property to be available for viewing by prospective buyers, but you still live there. Now, the listener requires advice on her rights in respect of her tenancy and associated issues. Now, I might just point out that this listener with this question, very real listener in question, is an employee of a different radio station. Non-competing, but different radio station. Interesting little tidbit to note there. Altaaf, assalamu alaikum as always, and welcome to the Breakfast Rush.
Walaikum salam. Assalamu alaikum to listeners.
How are you doing this morning?
Alhamdulillah, hi there.
If folks, you're watching the video, this is what he looks like when he dresses for court. Good to have you in the studio. Now, scenario there. So the foundation is basically laid for the topic. The tenant is currently renting. What happens to their rental agreement, because now the landlord wants to sell and they want to bring people into view and all of that?
So, unfortunately, like many things in law, it depends. So,
Right.
depends on the type of rental agreement.
Mhm.
Now, if you have a long-term contract, so by long-term contract, I mean you've entered into, let's say, a 2-year lease agreement for this property.
Mhm.
You currently in month 5 of that lease agreement, or whatever month actually, the property is now sold encumbered by that lease.
Right.
Meaning the lease agreement is now transferred over to the new owner,
New owner.
and it has to continue until the end of that lease agreement.
Mhm.
So in terms of law, ownership is the most complete right
Right.
over a property, meaning ownership allows you to exercise the greatest degree of rights over a piece of property. However, the greatest restriction on ownership is renting out that property. Because when you rent out a property, you essentially take your rights to the property and allow those rights to be exercised by some other person who's living on that property or using the property in whatever method according to a lease agreement. Now, if you are renting on a month-to-month contract, so either you have a verbal agreement, alternatively you have no agreement where you've just moved in and you've paid, but we're going to refer to it as a verbal agreement, or you may have entered into a written month-to-month contract. Those contracts can be terminated on 1 calendar month's notice at any time for no reason.
Okay. Now, the property rather has now been sold and there is a new owner. Can the new owner simply kick out any tenants?
So this is a big no, right? Once the property has been sold, the purchaser is not immediately the owner. Transfer has to go through at the deeds office, first of all.
Right.
only once transfer goes to the deed office does the purchaser become the new owner. Right now, that process, to my knowledge on current timelines, takes about 3 to 4 months post signing the necessary documentation. The new owner is not allowed to simply come and kick you out because you still have a lease agreement that is in place. And if the owner wants you out, the necessary steps need to be taken to cancel the lease. So again, if you are on either a long-term contract, alternatively a month-to-month, it needs to be dealt with in terms of the law and in terms of those agreements.
Now, we'll talk about that in a second. Just looking at what this listener has put down as a scenario, is the tenant required to allow people to come in and view the property in order for it to be sold?
So yes, the tenant is required to do so. However, the access or the request for access must be reasonable. Now, the concept of reasonable varies from person to person and scenario to scenario. Right? Reasonable is not a one-size-fits-all sort of description, because what's reasonable for me may not be reasonable for somebody else. Now, my recommendation is something of this nature, is that you set aside 1 day a week. Estate agents, I believe they're now called property practitioners,
right,
do this show day thing, either a Saturday or a Sunday from a certain time, let's say from 12 o'clock to 5 o'clock or whatever it is. The house is made available. Whoever wants to view it can come through and view it. You as a tenant, you make your necessary arrangements that you're going to be somewhere else doing something else in that period. You know they're going to finish off by a certain time and you come home after that. To me, that makes the most sense. Right? I know this particular person spoke about virtually every day the owner wants someone to come and view. I don't think that's reasonable.
Not at all.
Because you're a working person. You're up at 6 a.m., you're leaving home by 7 a.m. to be at work at 8. You've worked the whole day, you're getting home 5:30, 6 o'clock. You're tired. You've worked the whole day, you've put in effort the whole day, you're low on energy, you want to rest, and now suddenly you need to entertain guests in inverted commas. If the odd request comes through maybe one night a week for somebody to come in for 15, 20 minutes, it may be reasonable. But I don't think every single night would be termed reasonable. Like I said, going back to my suggestion, you rather have 1 day allocated where you've got this 4 or 5 hours, and whoever wants to see the property should come through at that time and see the property.
What about my personal property being inside and strangers walking around?
Well, that's the thing about a property that's currently being rented, being viewed. Look, I'm no expert on it. I'm just talking in terms of the law.
The law.
Whatever you want to not be seen,
keep it away.
Put it away.
There you
It's
go.
as simple as that.
Now, what happens to the deposit that the tenant has already paid?
Now, this is in the context of a property being there's a purchase and the property has been transferred to the new owner.
Yes.
So firstly, that interest is supposed to be in an interest-bearing account. This is in terms of the Rental Housing Act. And secondly, what should happen is when there is a new owner, the old owner should take that interest, or rather that deposit, together with all the interest that has been earned, and transfer it to the new owner, who should put it into a new interest-bearing account. Now, when we say interest-bearing account, and this is where a lot of tenants
our guys
get upset and get it wrong. These interest-bearing accounts, when it comes to these deposits, are very low interest. It's like 1% or 2% or something of that nature. So don't expect that your landlord has held your 10,000 Rand deposit for the past 10 years. You're now going to come out with 50,000 Rand or something of that nature. The interest is actually very, very minimal.
Yeah, you don't even need to
Very
bother
noticeable.
about it, really. Does the tenants have any rights to stop the sale or interfere in it?
So generally speaking, no, the tenant would have no rights to stop a sale or interfere in it. Ownership is the most complete right, and this is simply a transfer of ownership.
Right.
There are two exceptions, right? Now, there's two terms you could use for it. The one term is an option, and the other term is the right of first refusal. Essentially the same thing, right? These would come about if you have a written lease agreement. Now, some lease agreements have a clause in that agreement that if the owner decides that they want to sell the property, the current tenant is given, again, depending on the language used, either the option or the right of first refusal to purchase the property. So I, as the owner of this property, have decided that I want to sell this property. We have this clause in the lease agreement. The first thing that I should be doing once I've done that is make an offer to the, or rather inform the tenant, listen, I've decided I want to sell the property. This is the asking price. You have the right of first refusal. You have the option. Do you want to exercise it? And give them a reasonable period in order to make that decision, 2-3 weeks, whatever it is.
Yes.
I mean, the tenant's going to have to now go do affordability assessment, see if they can get a bond, things of that nature.
Yes.
And then come back to you with an answer. Don't do it on a 24 hours, an answer in the next 24 hours, something of the nature. It's not reasonable.
Unrealistic as well.
And then if the tenant, after giving them a reasonable time, declines the offer, alternatively is not able to meet that offer, then you now can sell it to other people or put it in the market to other people.
So the tenant has made significant upgrades to the property, which has increased the value of the property. Does the tenant have a claim against this owner?
Okay. Now, to some degree, again, it depends. Right? Now, there's a couple of questions that need to be asked.
Yes.
One question is this a permanent fixture or not? Right. So if it is attached to the property in such a way that removing it is going to cause damage to the property, it would be considered a permanent fixture. Right. Now, permanent fixtures are generally meant to remain behind. Now, we then go into the question of were the upgrades done with or without the consent and knowledge of the owner?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a second here, and I'm going to pose a question. Right? You're renting this property, you don't own it.
Yeah.
Why would you invest large sums of money in significant upgrades to a property that belongs to somebody else?
Good question.
To me, it doesn't make sense. Unless we're doing something along the lines of, listen, my rental is 10,000 Rand a month. I'm going to do 50,000 Rand worth of upgrades. So for the next 5 months, I'm not going to pay you rental.
Yes.
Then I can understand it, because you're getting your value out of it.
Yes.
Your rental value you're getting by doing the necessary upgrades. Now, essentially, if the owner is enriched, you may have a claim. So let's say prior to doing these upgrades, the property was valued at 500,000 Rand.
Yes.
Subsequent to these upgrades, the value is now 650,000 Rand.
Yes.
The owner has been enriched by the difference. So that's 150,000. So theoretically, there may be a claim. But it all depends on whether the owner was aware of these upgrades, depends on whether the property value has increased, depends on whether consent was given. It's not a one-size-fits-all answer, unfortunately. It depends on the circumstances.
Final question on this topic. If the tenant has an issue with an owner, how can they get assistance?
Now, today we're talking specifically about residential property and residential leasing. There is something called the Rental Housing Tribunal. Right? They're somewhere on West Street. The new name is Dr. Pixley Kaseme Street. They deal with landlord and tenant issues. Right? They fall under the scope of the Department of Human Settlements, I think it is. And very similar to the CCMA, they're empowered to have hearings, make rulings.
Right.
Those rulings can be enforced as an order of court, etc.
Right.
So theoretically, the Rental Housing Tribunal should be your first call. Even if it's just to pick up the phone them, listen, this is my situation. Can I get some advice on it? They'll advise you, to my knowledge, without you having to even lodge a case.
Okay.
And if you don't get any joy over there, you can approach an attorney for assistance. Attorneys deal with these matters all the time, and take it from there.
So, Altaaf, before you go, there's a question that comes in from a listener that is not related to this topic, but I think they figure, okay, he's there, he's an attorney, he does criminal law, let me ask.
Okay.
All right. So, going to WhatsApp really quickly, how long does a protection order last? They were told that it lasts or it expires in 5 years.
To my knowledge, protection orders are actually indefinite unless varied or overturned by a court. I've looked at the Act previously looking for the specific information.
Yes.
And I haven't found it in the Act. So my working advice would be, unless we can find something to the contrary, court orders are indefinite.
There you go. Hopefully that answers your question. Now, a lot of people have been, over the last couple of weeks, saying, please, can we have Altaaf's telephone number? Now, we used to do the telephone number. And I'm going to answer this on behalf of Brother Altaaf before he says, and he's got his own answer, but I'm going to say this. Altaaf used to give a cell phone number where you could get a hold of him directly. People telephoning him at 3 o'clock in the morning because the husband and wife can't agree on the amount of sugar that needs to go into his porridge is a little ridiculous. And then it was discussion. And we said, no, please, let's just do the emails so that legit requests for assistance would come through in that manner. So the phone number, cell phone number was being abused at the time. And then hence, like 2 years ago, I think we stopped giving out the phone number. But if people do want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Okay. Can drop me an email. Email address is altaaf@raooflaw. That's Ray. That's altaaf@raooflaw. That's Ray. Might take a couple of days, but you will get a response from me.
Did they finally figure out who's going to get more sugar in the porridge?
No.
He's not going to go there.
We're not going to go there.
Yeah, that's attorney-client privileged information. We can't talk about it. But thank you very much, Altaaf. Assalamu alaikum to you.
As always.
And that's it for the show as well, Nazmeera.
Be the best version of you.
Do good. Be good. Catch you again next time.
Brought to you courtesy of the Willow Tin Group, at the forefront of innovation, and one of the